In 1789, amid the freezing winds of winter, a brutal battle began, a clash that would decide the fate of an entire nation. To the north stood an empire vast as the horizon, marching to the thunder of war drums, with tens of thousands of musketeers and cannons that split the sky. To the south rose an army not born of kings, but of farmers, monks and warriors forged by fire and faith, armed with bamboo spears, fire pots, and an unbreakable will. They met on the plains where mist turned into flame, where the earth shook beneath 10,000 hooves, and the heavens burned red with arrows. Steel struck steel, drums roared like thunder, and within 7 days, the impossible became reality. When the smoke cleared, an empire had fallen, and a nation once divided stood whole again. The echo of those 7 days still rides the wind, telling the story of the storm that changed history forever. In the final years of the 18th century, Dai Viet, the land known today as Vietnam, was not one nation. It was 3 realms locked in endless rivalry. To the north, the Trinh lords ruled from Thang Long, a weary capital drowning in corruption. To the south, the Nguyen lords reigned in the fertile deltas of Cochinchina, and between them, in the rugged heart of the country, something began to move. A storm born not in palaces, but among the people. From the small market town of Tai Son, 3 brothers rose: Nguyen Nash, Nguyen Lu, and a young warrior whose name would soon shake empires, Nguyen Hue. They gathered farmers, craftsmen, and soldiers abandoned by their lords. They spoke with a voice the nation had long forgotten: justice for the people, unity for the land. Their rise was like lightning. In the north, the Trinh armies fell. In the south, the Nguyen strongholds collapsed. And at the center of the chaos stood Nguyen Hue, a man whose calm face hid a will of iron. His troops called him the Thunder Commander, for his attack struck fast and vanished before the enemy could understand what had happened. By 1788, almost the entire land of Dai Viet had been united under Tay Son banners. But in the ruins of the old Le dynasty, one desperate king still clung to his crown, Le Chiu Thong. Defeated and scorned, he fled across the northern mountains into China, kneeling before the most powerful ruler in Asia, the Qianlong Emperor of the Qing Empire. Qianlong saw more than a fallen monarch. He saw an opportunity. Under the noble pretext of restoring the rightful ruler, he would extend China's influence deep into Dai Viet once more. It was not rescue, it was conquest in elegant disguise. Through the bitter winter of 1788, imperial orders spread across the provinces of Guangxi and Yunnan. Trumpets called, drums thundered, and the banners of the 8 Banners Army rose above the snow. Columns of infantry, cavalry, and cannons began the long march south. Nearly 290,000 Qing soldiers crossed the border, confident that Dai Viet would fall within days. By December, the Red River plains trembled beneath their boots. Thang Long, the ancient capital, was occupied. Drums of victory echoed through its streets as Le Chiu Thong, pale and trembling, was placed back on his throne, guarded by foreign bayonets. To the invaders, it was order restored. To the people, it was humiliation. Homes were seized, rice stolen, temples desecrated. Families whispered in the markets, asking the same question: where is Nguyen Hue? He was in Pushuan, the modern city of Hue, when he received the news. Witnesses said he read the report silently, then folded it, eyes dark as iron. At last, he spoke to his generals, his words calm and cold. They came uninvited. We will send them home in ashes that night. Torches lit up the rain as messengers rode across the land. From every village came volunteers, peasants, monks, scholars, and veterans, all answering the same call. They did not come for gold or glory. They came for something deeper, the right to live free on their own soil. Nguyen Hue understood. This was not a civil war. This was a reckoning between a nation that refused to kneel and an empire that could not imagine defeat. And to face such an empire, Dai Viet would need more than a general. it would need an emperor. As the year 1788 faded into silence, Nguyen Hue began his preparations for what history would call a miracle. A coronation, a march, a storm. When the new year dawned, the drums of Dai Viet would thunder once more. The night over Puxuan was alive with firelight. Torches blazed along the fortress walls. Drums rolled like distant thunder. Messengers rode in and out through the gates, their horses wet with sweat and rain. The news had reached every corner of the city. The Qing army had crossed the border. Thang Long had fallen. But inside the imperial court, Nguyen Hue stood silent. He was not broken. He was preparing. In the grand courtyard, banners of Tyson snapped in the cold wind. Nguyen Hue appeared in armor dark as iron, without crown or silk. Only the calm of a man who had already chosen his path. The torches flickered on his face as he looked north, toward the lost capital. When he finally spoke, it was only one short sentence, steady and quiet. They have come too far. That night, under the roaring drums, he made his choice. He would not march north as a rebel commander. He would go as the rightful ruler of Dai Viet. Before dawn, he stood before the people and the army, lifted the imperial seal, and declared himself Emperor Quang Trung. The sound that followed shook the night. Cheers, drums, the ringing of gongs, the birth of a legend. It was no longer a rebellion. It was a war for the soul of a nation. At sunrise, Quang Trung began his campaign. The army was divided into three great wings, left, right, and center, each to advance by a separate route and converge on Thang Long. His plan was simple but daring. Speed would crush his strength, and surprise would defeat numbers. Every soldier carried only enough food for a few days. The rest would come from the people, and the people answered. Farmers opened their barns, monks brought rice and medicine, blacksmiths forged spearheads through the night. The entire land moved as one heartbeat. The Lunar New Year was approaching, a time when all wars should have stopped. In Thang Long, Qing officers celebrated under red lanterns, drunk on victory and arrogance. They believed no army would dare march during the sacred festival. But far to the south, while firecrackers echoed in empty villages, 50,000 Tay-Sun soldiers were already on the move. Silent, relentless, unseen. For 5 days and 5 nights, the army advanced through storm and darkness. They crossed rivers swollen with rain, trudged through mud that swallowed their boots, and pulled cannons through fields slick with clay. Villagers built bamboo bridges in a single night. Women carried torches along the road to light their path. The soldiers sang to keep pace with the drums. Each footstep, each shout, was another heartbeat in the growing storm. At the front rode Emperor Quang Trung. The ground trembled beneath the hooves. Wind tore through his crimson cloak, scattering sparks from the torches into the rain. He spoke little. He didn't need to. Tens of thousands marched behind him, their hearts beating to the rhythm of his horse's stride. To them, his shadow was not just a leader, it was a promise. As long as he rode forward, Dai Viet would never fall. By the 5th day, they reached Tam Deep, less than 100 miles from Thang Long. The mountains stood black against the sky. Quang Trung halted, gazed north, and raised his sword toward the horizon. No speeches, no orders. The gesture was enough. The next dawn, the storm would move. The air before dawn was heavy with fog and silence. Along the valleys of Tam Deep, 50,000 men stood waiting, their armor wet, their breath white in the cold. From the front ranks to the last, the soldiers of Tay-San clutched spears, bows, and curved blades, their eyes fixed north. The world held its breath. And then, the first drum struck. Its echo rolled through the mountains like thunder. Another answered, and another. The sound built until it felt as if the earth itself was moving. At that moment, Emperor Quang Trung raised his arm. No speech, no war cry, only that single motion. and the storm began to march. The army split into 3 long columns, flowing down the misty roads like rivers of steel. Their first target stood ahead, Ha Hoi Fortress, a garrison of the Qing army guarding the southern gate to Thonglong. Inside, the enemy slept easy. To them, no force could have crossed the mountains in such a short time. They were wrong. Before the sun rose, red torches flickered through the fog. The Tay-Sun soldiers crept into position. Archers on the flanks, infantry pressing close under soaked straw shields, drums muffled in cloth. Then at the signal, they struck. The first volley of arrows hissed through the mist. Screams erupted. The gates of Ha Hoi shuddered under the battering rams, wood cracking, hinges tearing loose. When the doors burst open, a torrent of steel surged in. Men shouting, fire spilling over the rooftops. The Qing soldiers, half dressed and half awake, ran in panic through smoke and chaos. Some tried to form ranks, but the Tay-Sun advance came too fast, too fierce. In less than an hour, the fortress was burning. Those who escaped fled north, spreading terror with every step. "They're here! They've come!" Quang Trung did not slow. He rode past the flames, his face hidden by smoke, and pointed north. "Forward," was all he said. The next target was Ngok Hoi, a larger fortress bristling with cannons and guarded by thousands. Here the Qing commander had prepared his defense, trenches, barricades, musketeers lining the walls. But nothing could prepare them for what came next. The Tay-Sun army advanced again, this time in formation tighter than iron. Front ranks carried the great bamboo shields, thickly layered with wet straw and mud to resist bullets. Behind them came the pikemen, then the swordsmen, and finally the reserves carrying fire pots and oil jars. Every man knew his role, every step beat in time with the war drums. When the first cannon roared, the sky exploded in sparks, yet the line did not break. They moved forward through the smoke like a wall of thunder. The battle raged across the fields. Qing muskets cracked from the towers. Cannonballs tore through the mist. But the Tay-Sun pressed closer, using their shields to bridge the trenches, climbing ladders slick with blood and rain. Archers loosed from behind, arrows blazing with fire. When the drums reached their highest pitch, Quang Trung gave the order. 1,000 torches hurled into the fortress. A sudden sea of flame. The Qing soldiers broke. Some threw down their weapons, others fled toward the marshes, but Tay-Sun cavalry was already waiting. Dark horses bursting from the fog, cutting through the fleeing ranks with curved blades. The sound of hooves, the clash of steel, and the thunder of drums merged into one unending roar. By noon, Ngok Hoi fortress was gone. Its gates shattered, its walls charred black. The main Qing force was destroyed. The survivors scattered north, their formations in ruin. The road to Thonglong lay open, wide and undefended. Through the smoke and falling ash, Emperor Quang Trung rode forward. The wind tore through his cloak, carrying sparks into the gray sky. Around him, his soldiers cheered, but he did not smile. He looked north, toward the capital, toward destiny. The storm had begun to consume everything in its path, and it would not stop until Thonglong was free. The morning of the 5th day of the Lunar New Year was gray and cold. A low wind swept across the Red River Plain, bending the reeds, carrying the smell of smoke and iron. Far to the north, behind the walls of Thonglong, the Qing army believed the worst was over. They had heard of Ha Hoi and Ngok Hoi, but refused to believe an army could move that fast. Inside their camps, soldiers laughed, played dice, and drank the last wine of the festival. Then came the sound that froze them, the drums. At first it was faint, a single rhythm rolling over the wind. Then came another, and another, until the entire southern horizon trembled with the heartbeat of war. From the mist rose the banners of Tay-Sun, red against the ash sky. 50,000 men advanced in perfect lines, shields glistening with rain, spears lowered like a forest of steel. At their head rode Emperor Quang Trung, his crimson cloak streaming in the wind, his face calm as stone. Behind him, the army stretched as far as the eye could see, a living storm rolling toward Thonglong. The Qing commander Sun Shiyi, Ton Xingyi, rushed from his tent, shouting orders. Drums from their side answered. Horns blared. Soldiers scrambled to their ranks. But confusion spread faster than command. The camp was too large, too scattered. Before the Qing lines could form, the first wave had already struck. Taesun cannons thundered, not grand weapons of iron, but light bamboo guns firing fire pots and stones. The explosions shattered tents, set supply carts aflame. As the smoke spread, the infantry surged forward, pressing into the heart of the camp. From the left, cavalry swept in, cutting down fleeing soldiers. From the right, archers unleashed flaming arrows that turned the sky red. The Qing tried to regroup, forming long rows of musketeers. But Quang Trung anticipated it. He split his forces into smaller groups, each moving fast, weaving through the smoke, striking from every side. It was not one battle. It was 100 smaller storms colliding at once. Drums thundered. The ground shook beneath thousands of running feet. Steel clashed, fire roared, and above it all, the emperor's voice rose once. Forward! Leave none standing. Taesun soldiers stormed through the enemy's barricades, shouting, cutting through the chaos. They moved like waves, one rank falling, the next rising. Amid the smoke, flags of both sides twisted and burned together. At the center, near the village of Dongda, the main Qing formation tried to hold its ground. They dug in around their headquarters, forming a ring of pikes and cannons. But Quang Trung saw the weakness. They had no room to retreat. He ordered his flanking divisions to circle wide and seal the exits. When the signal horn sounded, fire pots rained down from every direction. The entire valley erupted. Men screamed. Horses broke free, crashing through the lines. Powder barrels exploded, throwing up clouds of fire. Within moments, the Qing formation collapsed. The battlefield became a whirl of smoke, rain, and fleeing men. Ton Xingyi saw the banners fall and panicked. He fled north with a handful of guards, abandoning his army to its fate. Behind him, the road was a graveyard. Overturned carts, dead horses, and soldiers trampled in the mud. The rest tried to cross the Red River, but Taesun cavalry was faster. They rode down the fugitives, their sabers flashing under the storm clouds. By sunset, Dongda was silent. Where the Qing camp once stood, only smoke and ash remained. Thousands of bodies lay strewn across the field, armor glinting under the pale light. The storm had passed, leaving only ruin behind. Emperor Quang Trung dismounted, standing on the high ground overlooking the battlefield. The wind tugged at his cloak. Below him, the banners of Dai Viet rose once more over Thonglong. He closed his eyes for a moment, as if listening, to the drums that had stopped, to the land that was free again. The invasion was over. In just 7 days, the might of the Qing Empire had been shattered. And from that moment on, the world would remember the name Quang Trung, the emperor who rode with thunder. The storm had passed, but the silence that followed was heavier than thunder. Across the fields of Dongda, smoke still drifted from the ruins. Charred banners clung to shattered poles. Broken blades gleamed in the mud beside fallen horses. The earth was soaked in rain, blood, and ash. The last colors of war. For the first time in 7 days, there were no drums, no horns, no shouts. Only the wind, whispering across a land that had survived. Emperor Quang Trung rode through the battlefield at dawn. His horse moved slowly, hooves sinking into the wet ground. On both sides, the soldiers knelt as he passed, heads bowed in silence. No one cheered, no one spoke. The emperor's eyes scanned the valley, a sea of twisted steel and lifeless men. There was no pride there, only a deep, still sorrow. Victory had come, but it had a face carved in pain. Behind him, the army began to move again, not in battle, but in duty. Men lifted the wounded, carried the fallen, gathered weapons scattered across the fields. They built makeshift graves and marked them with branches. Smoke from funeral pyres rose into the pale morning sky, mingling with the mist that clung to the earth. The cries of war were gone, replaced by the quiet rhythm of mercy. By sunset, the field of Dongda no longer looked like a battlefield, but a resting ground for thousands who would never return home. Torches flickered along the horizon, not for fighting, but for remembrance, lighting the way for those who still breathed. 3 days later, the banners of Dai Viet entered Thonglong once more. The capital, scarred and silent, opened its gates beneath crimson flags. Crowds flooded the streets, some laughing, others weeping, all kneeling as Quang Trung rode through the heart of the city. He did not raise his sword. He did not smile. He simply bowed his head to the people, to the land, to the cost of freedom. That night, the bells of the temples rang across Thonglong. Their echo rolled through the air like a prayer. The war was over, and the land of Dai Viet, for the first time in generations, was whole again. Years passed, and the smoke of war faded from the skies of Dai Viet. The fields grew green again, the rivers ran clear, and the drums that once shook the earth now slept in silence. But the name Quang Trung never faded. It echoed in temples, in songs, in the whispers of generations that came after. They remembered the emperor not only as a warrior, but as a man who rose from the soil of the people, who carried the voice of farmers, monks, and soldiers into the heart of history. He had no blood of kings, no crown of gold, only the trust of a nation and the courage to fight for it. Under his rule, the land awoke from centuries of division. The borders held firm, trade flourished, schools reopened, new roads connected the north and the south. He dreamed of a united country strong in both arms and mind, a land of learning, order, and pride. Though his reign was brief, his vision outlived him. It became the heartbeat of a people who would never again bow to fear. Historians called him a genius. The people called him a savior. But to those who truly understood, Quang Trung was something greater. A reminder that power can come from humility and that greatness needs no crown, only conviction. Centuries later, the wind still moves over the plains of Dongda, where his victory reshaped the destiny of the nation. Each year, when drums echo through the capital, people gather beneath red banners and bow toward the north, not to worship, but to remember the storm that saved a country, to remember the man who became its thunder. And somewhere, in that timeless echo, the voice of the past still rides upon the wind, the steady rhythm of hooves, the whisper of banners, the pulse of a nation that once stood against an empire. The world may forget the empires that fell, but it will never forget the emperor who rose from the earth. Quang Trung, the lightning of Dai Viet, the man who rode with thunder and left behind freedom.